Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, and welcome back to Jamie Photography. So I'm going to do something a little bit different in today's video. We're going to create a vintage image. Here's the shot, SS Great Britain in Bristol in the southwest of England. I was down there with some friends earlier in the year and we took time to go and visit the great ship and have a good look round. It's a fabulous day out, must admit. And when we were there, they had a sort of period costume group of people from the local drama centre that were out keeping it in period, which really felt really excellent, back to the 1800s when this ship was really working and plying the seas. So SS Great Britain was launched in 1843. At the time, it was quite an undertaking, and I'll talk a little bit in this video about the history of the ship, what she did. This is my image that I've created from the day. Where did we start? Well, we started here. This was the shot I took on the day. I'm very happy with it. But of course, I've got to do a little bit of day to night, and we've got to do a little bit of magic. So we turned it into this vintage shot, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. The raw image for this video can be found linked down below. You're welcome to download it and follow along and join me in creating this image. And if you've got time, pop over and have a look at my website. Again, the link's down below, jrmathlin.uk, and you can find out a little bit about me, the gear I use, and I've also got sky packs if you're interested. So what are we going to use for this today? Well, we're going to use obviously Lightroom and Photoshop, but we're also going to use the DxO Nic 7 collection Silver Efex Pro, one of my favorite pieces of software. Again, there's links down below. There's a link for a free trial if you want to try it. There's also a link to actually purchase it. I do have an affiliate with DxO, but in this particular case, I'm not paid for that. I just love using the software, and all thanks to DxO for allowing me to use the Silver Efex 7. It's fantastic. So it's October 2024. There are some Black Friday deals coming up. I've been told by DxO there's some good deals coming, so keep an eye out there. As I say, links are down below. If you like the video, please click like. It really does help. And if you haven't already subscribed, feel free to do so and join me on my wonderful adventure I'm still having here on YouTube. And also, great to see your comments down below. If you've got anything to add or say, the questions are always welcome, and also tips. You know, I've learned a lot from what people have told me in the comments. Okay, let's get started. So as you can see, I shot this in ISO 1600 just to add a little bit more grain, and I'm not going to run with my normal workflow, which is to apply denoise. Reason being that older photographs were much more grainier than they are today. And I will be adding a little bit more grain as well, but I'm not going to be doing that through the effects process here in Lightroom. I'm going to be using Silver Efex Pro to add in more grain and give that sort of feel. So I'm not going to do denoise today. I'm not going to do that. We're going to move straight forward, do a slight conversion on the image to give it a little bit more contrast, perhaps give it a little bit of day to night. You know me, can't help myself. And then what we'll do is we will convert this into a vintage image. Looking like it was taken at the time, which is rather early 1843 for photography, but we can have a play with this. So first things I'm going to do on this shot here, go to the basic controls here. I'm just going to open up the shadows a little bit, maybe around about 60, somewhere around there. Going to bring down the highlights, and I'm just going to do my blacks and my whites. So I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key, and then move the white slider to see before we get some white showing there. So I don't want too much, just a little tiny bit, just in the sky. There we go. And the same with the black. So that's +9 on white, and then bring the blacks down, just a little bit of black coming in, -10. So we've got the full spectrum on the histogram up here. The next thing I'm going to do is consider the crop here a little bit. I think we're going to need to do something around here. Perhaps not a great deal actually on the crop. It's pretty good crop already. I'll go into the crop tool here, and we'll just take a little bit off of this side, and maybe a little bit off the top. See what sort of standard sizes we've got. I do quite like 16:10, so I'll check 16:10 to see. So let's just see. We'll go up further. I'll take this chap out the shot here, because he's right on the edge of the border. We'll do that when we go into Photoshop. I want to keep this lamp in the distance because I think I'm going to light these two two lamps here, and I need the edge of that barrel in the shot there. So we just need to make sure that the barrel is in the shot. There we go. So we've got a standard profile there, 16:10. That will work quite well. And I'm just going to hit return. So we've got the crop we need. There's a few things to tidy up in this shot, which we will go into Photoshop to do. But just before we do, I'm just thinking with the sky here, I don't want to do a sky replacement on this image. I'm going to try to use the sky that we've got. So let's just go into masks, select the sky mask there. A little bit missing over this side, as you can see, but what I want to do is just refine that mask a little bit more. So to do that, and this is quite a nice little trick, where you've got the sky mask now selected, three dots, go to that, intersect with mask, and select the sky again, and you'll get a slightly better cut around the edges there. We need to add this little bit in here, so I'm just going to click add, take a brush, and we've got the low flow, high feather, just to blend that back in there. So we've just got that all covered. A little bit more up at the top of the sky there. That's fine. I went over the front of the column there, so we can just use that brush that we just had. We can press and hold down the Option or Alt key, which will turn it into a minus. And whilst holding it down, we can convert the size of the brush, and then we can just go in here and remove the mask from where we came over the top there. If I want to do a straight line, I can just literally, still holding down the Option or Alt key, hold the Shift key as well, and then I can just take that away. There we go. Okay, now we've got the sky highlighted. Let's add a bit more contrast to the sky. Let's bring down the highlights. So you can already start to see there's a little bit more of the clouds starting to appear there. What I'm going to do is go down to clarity. Clarity is always a good one for skies. We can add a bit more clarity as well. You can see that's really brought the sky out there, and we've got this bright patch at the top here. But what I will do is just darken the sky slightly from the top using a linear gradient. So go to create mask, go to linear gradient, and then we'll just pull that down from the top there, probably at an angle as such. Go back to the adjustments, reduce the exposure, and then we can bring a little bit more of that sky alive up there. You see how that's really brought that alive. Really works very well. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to right click on this linear gradient. I'm going to duplicate the mask, and then what I'm going to do is just make this one a little bit smaller, so we just got that sort of darkness up in the top corner, and that will draw us into the image a little bit more. That works very, very well. Good. Okay, I'm just looking at the crop. I think I probably want to lose a little bit along the bottom here. I'm just going to unclick the padlock in the crop tool area there and just bring this up so that the curve goes into the corner here. I think that works a little bit better. We'll just extend it out because, as we say, we're going to take this chap out of the shot. So I'm not going to go with a standard ratio on this one. I'm just going to pull that over. I think I'm going to go all the way to the right, put the street lamp almost completely on the rule of thirds, and that works well. So hit enter again to accept the new crop, and then just before we go over into Photoshop, I'm just going to go down to transform, and I want to make sure that this lamp is straight and this lamp over here is straight. They're the two main elements of the shot. The masks all go in different directions, so they don't matter so much. So whilst in transform, I'm going to click guided. I'm going to take the center of the light column down the bottom here, come up to the center of the light column just up here. In fact, we could go all the way to the top if we wanted to. And then we're going to do the same with this lamp over here. We're just going to go to the center here, and then as far down as we can see to the center. There we go. Let's push that lamp a little bit over tight to the edge there. Let's just have a look at that. So we can turn off the lines. So it's still slightly in the shot. It is right on the very edge. I'll go back into the crop tool here and just pull that over again, just to make sure that we've got the edge of that lantern in the shot there. Hit return. There we go. That works very well. So I'm happy with this. I've got the skies being brought alive. let's go into Photoshop. Let's take this young man in the background here walking through. He doesn't fit within the time period. We have a look at him here. He's definitely from the future. So we'll go over into Photoshop now. So we'll right click, we'll edit in, and then what we'll do is we will go to editing Adobe Photoshop 2025. That's the latest version of Photoshop now, has been updated. So if you haven't got the latest version, but you do have a subscription, you can go into your Creative Cloud app up here, and you can select apps on the left, and then it will give you any updates in here that you need. And you can also check for updates if you want to, and they will show you whether everything is up to date. So the current up to dates: Camera Raw 17, Photoshop 26.0, and Lightroom Classic 14.0.1. They're the latest. Right, so back into Photoshop. So we've got the image in here. It's looking pretty good already. Nice color. I do like it. The sky is looking awesome. So we want to just have a little bit of a tidy up. So tarmac wasn't really a thing in the 1843s, a bit before all the oil and everything got going. So in essence, we need to just tidy this up, because they would have just had like a loose shale on the ground. So that's quite a big one that we need to correct. So what we're going to do is, rather than using all of the AI tools and all of the modern tools that we've been given, some of the older tools available in Photoshop are still very, very useful, particularly where you've got a certain sort of length there, and you've got ground around it, which is free. And one of the best remove elements for that is called the patch tool. Can be found under the remove tool menu. You just click the patch tool, and what we do is we effectively draw. And I'm not going to do, because this chap's feet are in the way up here, but I'm just going to come across here, and we're just going to draw around the area, as you can see, that we need to try to sort out. I'm just going to come down here. I'm going to come across here because I'll do the bit near the street lamp in a moment. So we're just going to draw carefully around. There we go. And we've just created a selection there. So I'm not going to use generative fill. As I say, that's just to show you that it can be done without. We're in the patch tool. So now you've drawn around it. When you're in the patch tool, you can go onto the selection and you can grab it and you can move it. And if we move it across, so we're completely separated. There we go, that's better. And if I deselect now, you can see that it's actually removed that really quite well. If we go back into the patch tool here, go to remove tool, and we can just paint in there over that area. And the remove tool is a very, very capable tool indeed for removing things. So once you've got the area you want selected, you can just hit the check mark up the top here. If you don't want to hit that every time, you can just check the remove after each stroke, and always have your sample all layers on as well. That's always useful. It doesn't catch you out then. So now, when you're in the remove tool, you have a number of options here. You can use auto, may use generative AI, generative AI on, generative AI off. Generally, it doesn't select generative AI as the option if you're just doing basic stuff. So for example, we've got auto on at the moment, and there's a leaf over here on the ground. If I just go over that leaf and click check, it doesn't use generative AI. It's able to do that without using one of your tokens. A little bit of blue on the ground there. So I want to remove that drain as well. In this case, I'm going to use the generative AI on, because I want it to actually get this right, because this is quite a central part of the image here. So I've selected it. I've asked it to use the generative AI switched on, so it's using that now. So it will take just a little bit of time to process. There we go. And it's done a very good job in removing it. So there's a couple of other areas. So I'm going to go back to auto on the remove tool. I'm just going to take out these marks on the ground here. Then we'll come over this side here. We'll do the same again. I'm just going to keep the grass in because it makes for quite a nice little bit of colour in that shot there. And just take out that area. There we go. That's worked quite well. Little area over here. Just note there's a little patch there. So we'll just do the same thing there. Patch that over there. Got rid of that as well. What else should we do? So back to the remove tool, just get rid of a little bit of something there. That's worked okay. Couple of little patches. I'm terrible once I get going with removing things. A couple of little white marks here and there. So I'm just going to pick up on those and remove those. Dark mark there. Check that. They're sorted. Right. Got to deal with this chap here. So rather than using the remove tool and then selecting generative AI, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to go into the lasso tool here, and I'm just going to draw around the chap. Let's keep the lady in the shot. Keep it relatively tight. There we go. And we'll come back down this side. So we've made a selection. We're going to hit generative fill and generate. That's it. He's gone. That looks well. Option 1. Option 2. That looks quite good with this rolling away in the background. Option 3. So I think I'm going to go with option 2. Yeah, that works quite well. Got the young man in the middle to deal with, as we talked about. So just zooming in a little bit there, and I'm just going to hold down the spacebar so I can move the image back into the right place. We're just going to go around him, and we will use generative AI to remove him. Generative fill, so generate. Happy with that. So let's just zoom back. Anything else we need to do with this shot? I think just inside the lamp there is a little bit of wire hanging down. I think it is a gas lamp mantle actually, so I think it might be. Oh, it is a gas lamp mantle. Yeah, so we'll leave that in. Just a little bit of wire here. I'm just going to remove. So we're going to go in, select the remove tool, and we're just going to go to the background layer so we can use it. Take a small brush here. We just want to deal with the. That there. There we go. And then we'll check that one. And that's sorted out. Just a little mark there. And I don't think there's anything else we need to do. I think this image is pretty well. Go to the magnifying glass here. Just go back to fit screen. Is there anything else that just needs a little bit of attention? No, I don't think so. So I'm not going to do any more here in Photoshop. I'm quite happy with this. We're going to take it back into Lightroom, and then we'll do the final edit in Nick Silver Efex 7 as well. So we're going to go to File, Close, and Save. And I'm just going to save that back into Lightroom. So we'll go back over into Lightroom. There we go. So we've got the image as we want it, all tidied up. So let's do a couple of minor changes just to give it a little bit more interest. Certainly, I want to turn the lights on. So what we'll do is we'll just go up to the top here. I'm just going to darken the whole image slightly. Let's go down one stop, and then we're going to light these areas up, and we'll just bring some of these other areas up to a bit brighter to make them work. So you probably know by now how I do my day to nights, but here's the lamp. So we're going to go into masks. We're going to select a radial gradient. We're going to take a radial gradient that's just slightly bigger than the lantern itself. I'm just going to zoom in so we're nice and relatively close to this. So just hold down the space bar to move it. There we go. We'll go up to there. So what we're going to do now is just going to raise the exposure to 100%, and we're going to bring some color in using the temp slider. Just give it a little bit of orange, and we're just going to slide over slightly the magenta just to balance it off. Now you might say, well, why are you worried so much about color? Because you know you're going to go black and white. But color's really, really important when you go black and white, because it gives you the contrasts that you can play with in the sensitivities for the colors. And I'll show you that a little bit later on. So it is quite a noisy image because we shot at 1600 and we have pushed the image a little bit, so you can see the grain now. But as I said earlier, we want to keep that. So let's put that in the center. Let's subtract a brush, and the brush will have 100% flow because we want it to do all its work, and 0 feather. So when we draw, we remove the radial gradient. Yeah. So we'll take a reasonable size brush in here. We're just going to cut in tight on there and click once. We're going to hold down the shift key, come up here to create a straight line, and then we'll run along that edge. So same again, click, shift, click, and then click, shift, click down here. And you just work your way around the lantern, click, shift, click, just to get those straight lines. Just going to come in here and then back out to here. Right, so we've effectively gone round and done the removal around the very edge there. Just going to make the brush a little bit smaller so it fits in this gap here. And we'll just do this as well. So I'm just going to leave a little bit of an edge on this because you'd get a little bit of bleed over from the light. There we go. So we've done that as well. Make my brush bigger again. So quite big this time, and we can continue to just go around the edges here, making sure we don't go over the lantern itself. If you do make a mistake and cut in by mistake, obviously just Command or Control Z to undo your last movement, and we'll go from there. So just going to take that around there, back up to where we started. So just going to zoom out a little bit, make sure we get the rest of that radial gradient sorted out, removed. Here we go. When I think I've got it done, I'll hover over the mask, and that will just tell me where we've just got that area, which we now do. So that looks pretty good, but what we're going to do is going to click on the radial, right click and duplicate the mask, right? So now we've got another one on top, and this one I'm going to make smaller and put where those gas mantles were. You see where they were? They were down here. So I'm just going to put them down there. I'm just going to back that off a little bit so it's not too bright. So it looks like the gas mantles are actually burning now in the lamp itself. So let's zoom back and see how that looks. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I actually find that lighting lanterns myself actually gives a better effect than actually taking a picture of a lantern that's lit, strangely, because there's so much contrast that's involved. So I'm going to do the same again over here on this second lamp. But whilst I'm doing that, let me tell you a little bit about the SS Great Britain herself. So she was launched in 1843, and when she was launched, she was the biggest ship in the world at the time. And up until that point, the next biggest ship was 212 feet long, which was the SS Great Western. When SS Great Britain was launched, she was launched at 322 feet long. In fact, she was so big, many people thought she wouldn't actually float. And at the time, she was called the greatest experiment since the creation, which is pretty intense when you think about those sort of words and how miraculous she was. So the biggest ship before the SS Great Britain took over as the largest ship was actually 212 feet long. So to go 50% bigger effectively was an incredible undertaking. She also was one of the first main ships to use propeller propulsion. At the time, that was also considered to be very revolutionary. She had 1,000 horsepower steam engines on board as well. So she was able to cut the time that sailing ships were taking 30 to 35 days to cross from Great Britain to America, to New York at the time. And she was able to take 15 days off that journey. Can you imagine? It was like building a starship today, really, in that sense. So yeah, it was miraculous in the day. People were astounded. She could carry 360 passengers at launch. It was primarily a luxury liner in the day. Later in her life, she was refitted to allow emigrants to move to Australia, the New World, away from the United Kingdom. And she was able to carry 730 passengers by that time. So can you imagine how crowded that might have been on there? Her full displacement at the time was about 3,400 tons. Yeah, she carried those passengers and about 1,200 tons of cargo, which was pretty impressive for the day. But the biggest ship before the steamships were coming in was HMS Britannia, which was a first-rate ship of the line in the Royal Navy that was commissioned in 1835 and decommissioned in 1869. And that was seen as a gargantuan ship in its day, and that was 205 feet long. So you can imagine what everybody thought about the SS Great Britain at the time. So let me just duplicate this mask here and just put this centerpiece in. So yeah, quite incredible for its day. I'll show you another picture as well I have of the SS Great Britain from when we were visiting here. So let me just just dim that one down just a little bit. There we go. That looks a bit better. Right, we'll come back out to fit. There we go. Yeah, that's looking better. Let me just show you the other shot of that I did when I was there. A little bit over the top, I must admit. Lots of vibrance and saturation, and it really does pick up the gold around the front of the ship here as well, and the coat of arms that was on her. The ship itself is in a dry dock in Bristol called the Great Western Dry Dock, and it's where the ship was actually built. The dry dock was actually built at the time for Brunel's ships. But what you can see here is that this is glass paneling and it's full of water. So actually when you're there and you look at it from certain angles, the boat looks like it's actually floating on water. So in here, and you can actually go down inside and walk around underneath that glass cover and see the underside of the ship and see the great propeller that the ship had as well. So if you do get a chance to come to Britain and you do get a chance to go to Bristol in the West Country of England, then go and take a look at the SS Great Britain. It's a good day out, actually, and it's good to go and see how people travelled back in the day. Anyway, let's continue to just get this finished off. We need some light on the ground underneath here, so I'm going to go back into my masks, take another radial. I'm going to take quite a large radial here, going to place it at the bottom of the lamp. I'm just going to turn the angle slightly. And then what we're going to do is bring up the exposure slider. So it's just bring that up till it sort of works at the right sort of level. Remember to add that color back in from above. Just gives it that color contrast. So that looks like good. The front of the barrel would not be lit because it would be in shadows. You can see from it coming down here. So I'm just going to subtract a brush. But what I am going to do is add a fair bit of feather in and just a little bit lower flow, just so that I can just remove it from there and just leave a little bit along that front edge so it looks quite natural. There's a little bit of light cutting in onto that front edge. I want to light the people up as well, and I want to be sure that we're seeing a little bit more detail. Now, if I just used this brush on these people, we would light the background up as well, and I don't really want to do that at the moment. So what I'm going to do instead is create a new mask, go to Objects, take the brush, and I'm just going to select these people and her dress and his feet. There we go. Use an object selection, just fill that in. And what will happen is the object selection will pick these people up for us. That works quite well. And I'm just going to increase the exposure gently to bring them back into the shot. There we go. So a little bit of contrast as well. So they're sort of lit up again and you can see them in the shot. We also need to just make sure that the whole scene here isn't too dark as well. So I'm just going to create another mask, another linear gradient, and I'm just going to pull a linear gradient across the center of the scene here. I don't want to light the sky, so I'm going to subtract the sky from the mask. There we go. And then I'm just going to, again, just brighten that up just a little bit, just to make sure that it's not too dark in the center. So it's all lit up here. Going to add a little bit of contrast to that shot as well, because the black of the whole needs to be seen as well. Want to make sure this lady's also seen. So same thing again, create a new mask, object selection. Let's select her so that she's picked up, and we'll just brighten her up a little bit as well, so she can be seen in the shot. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. I don't want to do too much more to it because we want to make it look that sort of vintage style. So now we're at this point. We'll come out of masks. Now we're ready to do the vintage transformation, if you wish. Now, I do love Silver Efex Pro, one of the Nick collection from DxO pieces of software. You can see some links down below if you want to try a free trial of the software. It's down below. There is also a link to purchase it. Now, I do have an affiliate with them, but there's in this case there's nothing in it for me. I just give you the link because there's some really good deals going on at the moment. October 2024, we're getting into the sort of Black Friday time. You should be able to pick up quite a good discount if you go direct to their website. But I'll put the link down below for you. You can go there. So to go into that, I've got it set as a plugin here in Lightroom. So Nick 7 Silver Efex is here. So I'm going to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. Keep what we've got there. Just click edit, and it will open the software for us. There it is. So it's jumped in here. Now it starts off with a neutral filter. Okay, they always start off with a neutral filter. I've got an earlier video, 2 or 3 videos back, how to create the perfect black and white image. If you want to see more details about all of the different functions that Silver Efex have, that video will take you through all of those. It'll also show you how to set up your own little collection of presets. So I've chosen some here that Nick provided. I've also added some of my own as well. I'll start off with a neutral. I've got, as I say, selected Jamie, and I can just go through these. So this is high structure, harsh. So that is harsh. Next one here we've got is high structure, smooth. That's looking a little bit better. A lot of contrast. We can change things, so don't worry. We can see where we go. We've got the full dynamic harsh. Now that does look a little bit more vintage, I must admit. But let's keep going. Let's have a look what else we've got. Full dynamic smooth. So let's select that one. That works quite well as well, I have to be honest. We will just make some minor adjustments to this to make it work. So first thing I'm going to do at the top is I'm just going to add a little bit more brightness to the scene overall. I want a bit more on the midtones, so I'm just going to bring the midtone brightness up. That works quite well. And I do want to brighten the shadows just a little bit, so let's just bring the shadows up just a little bit as well. So we get that sort of faded style that you can get. Now there is a dynamic brightness slider. You can use that instead of making your own adjustments here. And it can work quite well, but then you will need to back off just anything that you've done in there, just to see that you get the right sort of feeling. We've got lots of contrast here, and the amplifier, the whites amplifier, the blacks are pushed up quite high from that preset. You know, we can bring those back down to get a sort of darker shot, but I did quite like that style. I did pick that for a reason. And you also have quite a powerful slider here, the soft contrast, and I do like this. If you go from one end to the other, it will change the brightness. You will have to adapt the brightness, but if, say for example, I bring it down there and then I can darken the scene down, you get quite a hard contrast. If you push the soft contrast up high and bring that brightness back up to compensate, you get quite a softness in the contrast, which really does work quite well, particularly if you're looking to go to a sort of an older style. So let's not go too bright. It's all right. The lantern's been blown out just a little bit. It's a bit too bright up there. So what we can do is go to some local adjustments here, and we can select a control point, a polygon control point, and we can literally just go in on that lantern there and select that control point to just deal with the lantern itself. So there we go. I've selected that, and now I'll get a whole set of sliders that I can apply just to the lantern itself. So in this case, I'm probably going to let's go to amplify whites and bring that down, and then I'm also going to probably, let's think, luminance, just decrease the luminance slightly, and I probably want to bring down the highlights in that shot just a little bit, not too much. So come away from that. Let's have a look. Yeah, that looks better. That looks better. So where do we go from here? So just going to finish off with the structure adjustments. So you can add a lot more structure to the scene, and you can see that gives much more of a sort of modern black and white look. And you can also reduce it to give that softer look, which is what I'm going to do. Just drop the structure down a little bit. The structure in the highlights, I also want to reduce. The mid-tone structure, I'm just going to come down a little bit. And the shadows, now they're quite important when you're looking at this type of shot for structures. So I'm just going to actually add just a little bit in the shadow structure. And then we have the black structure, which I'm quite comfortable with at the moment. And the fine structure, we can adjust the fine structure, soften the actual micro detail or increase the micro detail. In this case, just going to add a little bit to the shot. So we've got the image is relatively sharp, but the overall image is quite soft, and that's really what I was after. So we're going to go down again. There is a clear view option if you want to use that. That just really gives it more of a modern look and gives it a lot more contrast, so I'm not going to use that. So now we get to the more important part of it, which is the color filters, which we were talking about earlier, the color, using the color dynamic to create more contrast. So we have a set of filters. So if we'd applied a blue filter in front of our lens when we were shooting this shot, you'd get this effect, and then you can work your way through the greens, the oranges, yellows, reds, and back to neutral. So in this case, the blue gives quite an interesting shot because it changes the actual way in which the colors have been rendered. And if you go back to the days of film plates, silver nitrate plates, they did also alter the scene contrast based on color. So I'm going to go with the blue, quite like that. And then what we can also do is just look at the grain structure. But before we do that, we can pick a film type. So we can use a type of film. So we could go back a little bit to some of the really great black and white film that you could get. One of my favorites was the HP 5 Plus and the Ilford Pan 400. Fantastic in the day. So I actually quite like the Pan 400. Let's try the XP2, too much contrast. So I'm going to go with the Pan 400, and you can see it's added the grain automatically to the scene. We've got a grainy shot, which we would have had back in the day. So you can see here the grain per pixel has been selected based on the film, and the grain hardness has been selected. And you can alter those as well if you want. If you want more grain, you can move that slider to the left. So I'm not going to go too much. I'm going to soften the grain just a little bit because I want that sort of more soft effect in the shot. So I think that's looking pretty good. I want to brighten the whole scene a little bit, but the center of this scene here is already quite bright. So what we're going to do is just back off the mid-tones just a little bit. And then I'm going to open the shadows up a little bit more, just to get that sort of more hazy, faded effect. So the overall scene is that little bit brighter. Just going to bring up the brightness one notch. There we go. Okay, so you think, well, it's looking pretty good. Yeah, it is looking pretty good. The last thing we're going to go into is the finishing adjustments, and we've got toning. Now, toning, really good, really, really good. Now, normally, when I select toning, I'm going to go in here. You've got all your different tone colors. Normally, I go with selenium. Gives me quite a nice, I'll select selenium. Gives me quite a nice, more modern black and white look, and it's the one I tend to use if I'm doing a black and white image today. But this is vintage, so let's go down to sepia, and let's pick a sepia color that works well with this. So number 19 is the minimum sepia grade, and then we've got a slightly more, and then a really orangey one. I think the middle one works quite well. I'm going to select that. Yeah, I quite like that. And then we got the vignettes as well. Now, one of the things with vignettes is we tend to do the lens fall off, so we tend to have the blacker corners like so, as you can see. But actually, in the older days, they really struggled with the edge of the image and overexposing it towards the edge because of the angle at which the light was coming from. So actually, white frames actually are more accurate. If you go with a white frame, such as that there, you can see we've got that effect. And I'm actually going to select white frame too. And then we can burn the edges off if we want to as well, so we can create a little bit of a burn off on the edge. But I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is put an image border in, and I'm going to select an image border that sort of shows like the photograph is actually printed on a piece of paper. So I think that number 10 works really well. I like that a lot. So you know, I'm going to say that I'm pretty happy. I'm going to go with that. So I'm just going to click apply and send that back into Lightroom. There we go. So we're back in Lightroom. So that really does look quite authentic. Now, there's a couple of little minor finishing touches that we want to do. You could end there and be quite happy with that. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back into Photoshop and then just click edit, use the adjustments that we've got. Now we're back into Photoshop here. So one of the things they used to do in the old days is they would write on the image what it was. So we can do the same thing. So I'd like to put down here in this bottom left corner where there's a bit of space left. So let's just move that up. I'm going to go to the font tool here. So it's just got a T, and I'm going to select that. I'm just going to put it in the bottom corner here. Okay. Now we need to select some sort of script as though it's been almost handwritten. And if you go in and select scripts, you'll find that there's quite a few different ones that you can use in here. One of the ones I quite really do like is this one here, Sapfino. So I'm going to select that, and then we can select the size. So I think the size at the moment probably looks all right, around about 48. And then what we need to do is change the text. So I'm just going to highlight that text and I'm going to type in there SS Great Britain. SS Great. And I'm going to put the date in there. So let's say it's 1843, which is a bit of a play on the dates when it comes to photography as well. So yeah, there we go. It looks okay, but it looks a bit too fresh, too modern, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to I'm just going to put it in the right place first. So make sure you select the font layer. Just go to the movement tool and just move it into the right place where I want to put it. That's great. Now, whilst we're on that layer, let's go into filter. Okay, and let's go down and select blur. And what we're going to do is we can use different types of blurs here to give us a more sort of authentic look. So the first one I'm going to try is surface blur. So we can convert this layer to a smart image. There we go. So let me just do a big change. So I'm just going to move that over to the right, and we can just move these over. And because it's a surface blur, it gives you that sort of depth of surface on the blur there, you see. So I can just move it around until I find where I'm sort of most comfortable with it. So I'm going to go with quite a blur, not quite that much, about there. And then I can move the radius to determine how much of a blur I want to have in there. So you can make it quite faint down there. You can bring it in there as well. So I'm going to go, I think, roughly around about there. I'm just going to click OK. Now, this is very black, right? So whilst we're on the SS Great Britain layer here, we can go to Image and Adjustments, and we can go to Brightness and Contrast. So we can also affect the brightness and the contrast of that layer as well. So we can make it more or less contrast there, and we can just make it darker or brighter. So I'm just going to probably find somewhere. I don't want it to be too black. I just want it to just sort of fade in the bottom there. That looks okay. So it's looking pretty good. I'm quite happy with that, but I still think it's a bit too black. So let's apply another filter and then just blur it ever so slightly more. But this time we use a Gaussian blur, and we will just a little bit fainter on there as well. Just a little bit of a blur to make that work. So I think that works really well. So I'm just going to bring all these layers together. I'm just going to right click on any one of the layers. I'm just going to flatten, bring it all together as one layer. Now, again, we could finish there, and I think that does look very good, but this is a real trick to finish it off. What we could really do is put in a texture behind this. So if you want to find yourself a texture, you can go on to Google and just type in metal surface texture or wood or whatever you want sort of style of texture, and then you can just download the image off of from the images in Google. So what I'm going to do, I've pre-downloaded a texture here. This is a metal texture. So there we go. Just to open that up, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So let's go to image. Let's go to image size, and let's make it a lot bigger. So let's go to 2000. Make sure this lock is in place, and then it will keep preserve the ratio. And then I'm going to preserve the details selection and use enlargement. And I'm just going to click OK, and it's going to make it a little bit bigger for us. Now, it is a little bit of detail there, but it doesn't matter because we're going to use it as a background. So we'll select this. So Control or Command A, which is select all. Then I'm going to Command or Control C to copy. I'm going to go over into this image here, and I'm going to Control V, and there it is. It's quite small compared to my 45 megapixel image here, but don't worry, that's not a problem. We need to rotate it so it goes top to bottom. So bear in mind, there's the layer over on the right hand side. It's still selected. So what we're going to do is we're going to select that layer. So I'm just going to turn off the background so we're focused on that. So I'm going to take the rectangular marquee tool here, select that. We're just going to highlight that in this shot here. There we go. We're going to do Command or Control T, which is to transform, and then we can use the left or right rotation keys there. So I just click that. We've rotated it to the vertical, so we can just take the sliders here and just make it bigger. So There we go. We'll just make it fit the screen here. So up to the top, and then we'll just stretch the sides out to the side of the image. So I'm happy with that. So this layer is currently in front of the picture layer, so that's why we can't see the picture. So what we can do now is just make this layer on the top transparent so that the photograph shines through. And how we do that is quite simple. We just go to the occupancy over here on this layer. So we select the occupancy and we drop it down. Okay, and I just went straight to 18 now. I didn't make any attempt to change that. And you can see that it comes through. Now it's probably still a bit strong, so let's back that down a bit further, maybe down to 10%. Yeah, a little bit more. I'm just going to bring those together again, merge the visible, bring them in back to a single image. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go to File, Save, and Close, and we'll go back into Lightroom. And there is our finished image. So I hope you like that. There's how to create a vintage image, taking a modern image that you've shot today. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love you to click like. If you like what I'm doing on YouTube, it'd be great for you to subscribe and join me here. And if you've got time to leave a comment, always welcome your comments, and also any tips or questions, or feel free to put them down below. But for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.